Hi and welcome. We're going to take a look at Prelude in C minor by J.S. Bach. It's BWV, easy to remember, 999, and I'm delighted to be looking at this at the request of Josiah, Daniel and Sam. It's a piece that we know about through J.P. Kellner. Now, J.P. Kellner wrote out quite a lot of Bach's keyboard music, and that's the only reason that we have many of his pieces. So very grateful to him. And in this particular one, there's very famously a contentious note that we'll come to in bar 23, the E flat in the bass, and we'll come to that in a second. This was originally written, it says, this handwritten version by Kellner that I'll show up on the screen at various times, written for a lute, but it works fantastically well on the keyboard as well. We are in the key of C minor, and very, very unusually, most pieces don't do this. If you're in C minor, you usually end in C minor, but we don't here. We end in, well, it's sort of G minor, but he plonks down a G major chord at the end. So that's an unusual feature of this. It's clearly a sort of exercise, isn't it? An exercise in voicing these chords, voicing the way we play these chords, an exercise in keeping that nice and even, I imagine. But also an exercise in understanding chord progressions and how chords work and how chords move from one to another. That element of how to become a composer was a key aspect of Bach's music, and for his son to an extent as well. That's the world they lived in, where if you're a musician, you wrote music as well as performed it. So let's have a little look. We can see that the pattern, once set up, carries on through the whole piece. So let's just look at the first 4 bars for a minute. We're in 3/4 time. We have 3 flats to think about. We are in C minor. First 4 bars. Now there I was playing that note and giving it its full crotchet length, and the rest of the bar I'm hearing it slightly detached. I think we really want that, which brings us very neatly to the question of pedal. Should we pedal this? Entirely your call. I just played it dry with no pedal at all, and it will work fantastically well. I can play the whole piece with no pedal. But I don't, as I've often said, I don't subscribe to the notion it's a keyboard music intended for a lute or a harpsichord. Therefore, we're playing on the piano, we've got a pedal, we're going to use it if we wish to. So if we're going to use the pedal, I think a good formula is for the first 2 beats. Pedals on for all of that, but then just to hear that separation on the boom choo, yeah? And I'm hearing all those notes are equal and separated, although they're notated as quavers and semiquavers. Let's listen to a few bars like that. So I'm pedaling the first 2 beats, listen the pedal off for the 3rd beat. It works really well, but I'm deliberately going nice and steadily at the moment so we can think about what we're talking about. Or do it completely dry. The choice is yours. What I wouldn't do, it could be tempting to pedal for the whole bar, but it works harmonically because each bar is a chord. But I think we just miss that little bit of contrast in the texture, that notion of articulation that we can make use of to make the whole piece more interesting if we just separate the last beat. I would definitely practice it as block chords. I'm just reading the first beat of each bar in effect. I would also, by the way, do this for bigger chunks of the piece, but I'm illustrating with just this first section. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning, what are these chords? Work them out. Perhaps not the whole piece in one go, but, okay, we're in C minor. What's Bach doing? He's announcing the chord of C minor. He's announcing it there. Then he's going to an F minor chord. That's chord 4, isn't it? Very common to go to chord 4. And back to chord 1. It's beautiful. So he's at chord 4, a couple of those. And then he's going to... Now that there, ignoring the C for a moment, that is a diminished chord. It's a diminished chord built on the 7th scale degree. And that, a diminished chord, is super duper powerful. The other note, if we were to make it a diminished 7th, notice those are minor thirds, would be at that note there. And that wants to go there. It's also, let's take a little detour just for a second. Ignore that. I said that will want to go to there. But equally well it could go to the major, and it can go to some other keys as well. I went from B to C. I could also go to E flat, couldn't I? Oh, that works. Or E flat minor. I could also go to F sharp major or F sharp minor. I can also go to, can you work out what the other one is? A. Very, very versatile chord, the diminished 7th chord, or diminished triad here that Bach is using. No, actually it's not, it's a diminished 7th because he's got the A flat down there in the left hand. Back to the music. The other feature we see is that Bach very often sits on a bass note, and this happens more in a moment. And that's called a pedal point. It comes from the word pedal point comes from the word of organ playing, where the organist would plonk down a note with a pedal and play all sorts of chords over the top. Really useful, again, teaching us how to compose. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through it at a nice steady pace. We'll come to that bar 23 and I'll talk to you about that in a moment. But let's just run a section through. I'm going to do the with pedal for the first 2 beats version. Nice and steady, not too fast for now. Make something of that bass line. It's so beautiful, isn't it, that progression? Let's hear it again, just because. Have we arrived on that F sharp, but it's still unstable, isn't it? Again, that dry 3rd beat means that when we land at the beginning of the bar, as the chord changes, it's all the more, we get that sense of arriving, don't we? And do use the dynamics. Again, don't think, it's designed for the, not the piano. Use the expressive qualities that our instrument has. The music is crying out for it. Let's go from here. We've just landed on or we were about to. So now we've arrived at this D down the bottom. This is our first pedal note. That D just sits there for quite some time. What are the chords? That looks like our friend a diminished chord again, or is it just a D dominant 7th chord? Which goes to G minor. this here, that D, in the edition by J.P. Kellner, who we met at the start of the video, he wrote very, very clearly, and here's his manuscript, an E flat there, which would sound like this. Let me go from bar 21. It works, and in fact that's the edition that I first played as a boy, so I sort of got that version in my head. But it's possible that J.P. Kellner made a mistake. Perhaps what Bach meant was just to sit tight on that D. Let's go from the same place. That also works really well. So that is a contentious bar. But if you're preparing for the exam, for the ABRSM, we need to play the D because that's what they've given us in their version of it. And by that point, I think we should be a bit louder, sense of arrival. Let's go from there. And quietly dying away. Lots and lots of diminished chords here. What's happening? G major, possibly? A bit sadder. Definite sense of slowing up there at the end. And if you're doing the pedalling, you might want to watch my my video of this where I performed it. But and just a note on that penultimate bar, it's the only bar where we hear two chords in that bar. It's to bring the piece to an end. We hear a G minor for the first two beats, and then we hear a another diminished thing going on to take us to G major at the close. So then pedal off for there. It definitely has a G major-y feeling, G minor. He's playing with us right until the very end there. I'd say that begins from bar 33. Is it going to be G major? Is it going to be G minor? It's a lovely, lovely piece. Practice it in block chords. Aim for equality, evenness. Think about the pedal and have a lot of fun working out what he is doing in this piece. Thank you very much, Sam and Josiah Daniel, for asking for this one. Best of luck with all your piano practice. Take care. Bye-bye for now.